The Blackwood estate stood on a windswept hill. Weathered wood, once proud, now peeled and grey. Windows like vacant eyes stared out blindly. Thorns clawed at the wrought iron gates, whispering secrets of the past.
This house is perfect. I mean, it's a steal and right within my budget. I can't believe my luck. It's everything I ever wanted in a home. The space, the charm, the price. It's all just too good to be true.
Ehsan, young and naive, dismissed local tales. The neighbours had warned him about the house's eerie past, but he laughed it off. Ghost stories and superstitions were not something he believed in. He was too practical for that. The house was a steal, perfect for his meagre budget. It stood tall, albeit a bit worn with an air of forgotten grandeur. The peeling paint and broken windows didn't deter him. He saw potential where others saw decay. He stepped inside, dust swirling in the musty air. The sunlight filtered through the dirty windows, casting an ethereal glow on the neglected interior. It was like stepping into a different era, a time capsule waiting to be revived. A shiver, unexplained, ran down his spine. It was as if the house itself was greeting him, acknowledging his presence. He shook it off, attributing it to the cold draft that seemed to permeate every corner. He ignored it, focusing on the potential he saw. Each room held a promise, a vision of what it could become with a little love and care. He imagined the laughter, the warmth, the life that would fill these empty spaces. He spent days cleaning each creak of the floorboards, sending chills down his spine. The house seemed to resist his efforts, as if it had grown accustomed to its solitude and didn't want to be disturbed. He pushed the unease aside, telling himself it was just the old house settling. He had read about this. Old houses made noises, they had drafts, it was all perfectly normal. He just needed to get used to it. Nightfall brought a deeper chill, a sense of being watched. The darkness seemed to come alive, shadows dancing on the walls, whispering secrets he couldn't quite hear. He felt eyes on him, but every time he turned there was nothing there. The house, it seemed, had its own way of welcoming him.
Hello? Ehsan's voice trembled as he called out into the darkness, his heart pounding in his chest. The room was eerily silent, save for the faint rustling of leaves outside the window.
Ehsan woke with a start, his body drenched in cold sweat. He had been having the same nightmare for weeks, but tonight felt different. There was a palpable tension in the air, as if something was watching him. Moonlight painted the room silver, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. The familiar surroundings of his bedroom now seemed foreign and menacing. A figure stood by the window, a woman in a flowing white gown. Her presence was both ethereal and unsettling, as if she belonged to another world. Long, dark hair cascaded down her back, obscuring her face. He blinked, heart pounding, trying to make sense of the apparition before him. Was she real or just a figment of his imagination?
"Who are you?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. The woman remained silent, her eerie smile growing wider.
The woman turned, a soft smile playing on her pale lips. Her movements were slow and deliberate, as if she was savoring the moment. Her eyes, dark and bottomless, held him captive. They seemed to pierce through his very soul, revealing his deepest fears and insecurities. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It was as if an invisible force was holding him in place, preventing him from escaping. Fear, cold and paralyzing, gripped him. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his body refused to obey. She glided towards him, her feet not touching the ground. The closer she got, the more intense the feeling of dread became. Ehsan knew he was in the presence of something otherworldly, something that defied all logic and reason.
He tried to scream, but no sound came out.
"You're mine now," she whispered, her voice a mournful sigh.
Her touch, like death itself, spread through him. He thrashed, desperate to escape, but it was no use. An invisible force held him down. Panic surged, drowning him in terror. He was trapped, at the mercy of something not of this world. 2 days later, Ehsan's friend Omar arrived. He found the front door ajar, a sense of dread gripping him.
He called out, his voice echoing in the silence. Each step deeper into the house amplified his fear. He found Ehsan in the bedroom, lifeless and cold. His eyes were wide with terror, frozen in a silent scream. Omar staggered back, bile rising in his throat. The room felt heavy, oppressive.
On the wall, scrawled in what looked like blood, was a message. It was not just any message, but one that seemed to carry a weight of dread and despair. The letters were jagged, as if written in a hurry, or perhaps in a moment of sheer terror. The crimson hue of the writing contrasted starkly against the pale, peeling paint of the wall, making it impossible to ignore. "He's mine now." The words pulsed, as if imbued with a life of their own. They seemed to glow with an eerie light, casting unsettling shadows that danced across the room. It was as if the message itself was alive, breathing and watching. The atmosphere grew heavier with each passing second, the air thick with an unspoken menace.
Omar stumbled back, his eyes fixed on the crimson writing. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing in his ears like a drum. He could feel the cold sweat trickling down his back, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. The room seemed to close in around him, the walls pressing in, suffocating him with their silent threat. He fled the house, the image of his friend's lifeless eyes seared into his mind. The night air was cold and biting, but it did little to calm his racing heart. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound amplified in the stillness of the night. He ran, not daring to look back, driven by a primal fear that gnawed at his very soul.
The chilling message echoed in his ears, a promise whispered from beyond the grave. It was as if the very walls of the house were alive, whispering secrets and threats in a language only the dead could understand. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling his mind with a cacophony of voices that drowned out all rational thought.
"He's mine now," the words seemed to repeat, haunting his every step. They followed him, a relentless reminder of the horror he had witnessed. No matter how far he ran, or how fast, the message was always there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the moment to strike. It was a curse, a dark omen that promised only despair and doom.
The Blackwood estate stood silent once more, its secrets buried within its decaying walls. The wind howled, a mournful cry carrying on the breeze. Was Ehsan's fate a result of his ambition, or was he simply another victim claimed by the house's dark past? Some questions are best left unanswered, some doors better left unopened. The Blackwood estate held its secrets close, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of the ordinary.